Welcome to Mamahood After Trauma, where we stop pretending and heal out loud. I'm Emily Cleghorn, trauma survivor, cycle breaker, and mama rebuilding from the inside out. If you're ready to break cycles, trust yourself again, and rise without shame, you're in the right place. Let's go. Before we dive in, I want to introduce you to something brand new. If you love the podcast and want a deeper connection to your healing, check out the monthly Peace Pack, a small trauma-informed tool delivered each month straight to your mailbox to help you find calm in the everyday. You'll also get access to our private Patreon community where mamas like you can share, support, and learn together. Sign up with the link in the show notes. Hello, mama, and welcome to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. I am so thrilled that you have taken some time out of your busy mama schedule to tune in and listen to our conversation today. Today, we are joined by the co-founders of Slumberkins, Kelly and Callie. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you for taking some time to have a conversation with us. So, typically, I ask my guests to introduce themselves and share a little bit of how they came to work in the space. So, if you ladies would like to share a little bit of how Slumberkins came to be, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so I'm a former special education teacher, and Kelly is a marriage and family therapist and school counselor. And we've also been best friends since we were 14, and we kind of did life in parallel of both playing college sports and then going to get our master's, going into our master's programs to become educators around the same time, and then serendipitously ended up on a maternity leave together from our roles as educators. And at the time, I worked in a therapeutic day treatment school. So even though I was a trained special education teacher, I was actually having to show up more like a therapist in my role every day. So I would call Kelly on my way to school, my way home from school to say, okay, give me another intervention for like this situation. And so we would always kind of swap stories when it comes to interventions in the world of mental and behavioral health for young kids at school. And then when we ended up on our maternity leave together in 2015, we had some time and we were also just inspired by our babies. And pretty much, as you know, it takes a village when you have a new baby. So we were always together. And we had this aha moment of, can we really kind of package something that's really simple, really turnkey, really easy to use for any parent to really help proactively teach and empower some of these skills that we were seeing like down the road, trying to be preventative in some of the like mental and behavioral health that we were seeing down the road.
Yeah. And I would just add to that, I think being in the schools, being a therapist and doing family therapy as well, what I saw in the curriculum and what teachers were empowered with, and often unless parents were coming to a therapist, right, there was a layer of depth that wasn't being addressed in, social emotional curriculum. It was very much about just identifying and controlling emotions in order to control behavior. And as a family therapist, I was really interested in kind of breaking cycles and helping parents see a layer deeper. That was the work that we were doing. We were starting to go to therapy at that time and dig deeper within ourselves, but like actually making that into something you can do and empower your child with was a lot of what we were also trying to do with Slumberkins, really take it a layer deeper. So that was layered in as well.
Yeah, I think what I love so much about what you ladies have done with Slumberkins is it takes the work that I am doing in helping moms understand their triggers and how trauma is impacting their parenting, and translated that into kid-friendly language so that not only mama is doing her work and building her trigger toolkit, but now with Slumberkins, moms and dads for that matter have the ability to translate it into kid friendly language that their child can understand. Um, so well done on that,
You.
because I think over the last number of years, the trauma recovery space and um, nervous system regulation space has has made big strides in understanding how to regulate your nervous system. But I think there's a lot of room for us left to go. And so, what what are some of the biggest observations that you guys have seen with people using Slumberkins?
I can go first. I think some of the beauty of Slumberkins is that it's so simple. And I think that there's a lot of more awareness and a lot more conversation around people's own awareness of their own stuff and their own triggers. But when it comes to actually having like the tangible tool and applying the awareness and like the learning and trying to show up differently for a child,
Mhm.
I think that's where Slumberkins is a really great actual physical tangible like tool for in the toolbox. Like you said, I love the phrase the trigger toolbox
Yeah.
because in the moment, like even if you have the awareness, much like Kelly and I have both done our work in therapy, we've both gone deep in understanding our own
Mhm.
traumas and our own triggers. And even so, like we both still will lose it on our kids and we still need
Absolutely,
Repair
yeah.
Bear, like our own creature, like our own tools, because I think like knowing and doing are two different things, and it takes a
Yeah.
lot of practice in doing. And I think we all need more tools in our toolbox.
Yeah. And like you were saying, Slumberkins really gives that scaffolding and the
Mhm.
words, and in a way that you don't end up kind of, for example, Repair Bear, right? Like you have a blow up. If you're doing your work, you're aware of, you have your trigger toolbox. There can be a moment where you're like spinning out and want to explain and talk to your, get things right with your child and stuff, and where that's coming from a beautiful place.
Mhm.
Also, it can get into, from a kid's understanding, to not the right kind of repair that actually brings you back together. I know I was like master of doing that. I had to really slow down and learn how to apologize and repair, because my own system would go into overdrive of wanting people to understand, like, I didn't mean to, and this is all the things that I intended, and that
Mhm.
takes away from a repair, right? When you're trying to
Yeah,
come back into connection. So, that's where when we wrote Repair Bear, it's simple, it's straightforward. You take accountability for your part. You say, my feelings are mine and I'm dealing with those and I'm sorry and I want to come back
yeah,
together. Just even
yeah,
having that moment that creates that magical moment of reconnection, and then explaining, or ongoing discussions about boundaries or consequences can go on after that. But having the books and the characters to lean on in moments when you feel that you're triggered or overwhelmed can be really, really helpful.
yeah, yeah. One of the things that I tell mamas that I do workshops with all of the time is that using your trigger toolbox and the tools that I'm teaching them, it's you need to practice over and over and over again. And typically when you're not triggered, because when you're triggered and that conscious part of your brain goes offline, you rely on your default. And if
Mhm.
your default is getting lost in whatever trigger spiral you're in, then learning how to repair that and understand what's actually happening is huge. And it requires a lot of grace too, to not
Yeah.
berate yourself and fall into the I'm such a bad mom narrative.
Oh yeah, the shame spiral can
Yeah.
get you sometimes, but yeah, for sure.
Well, that's where things like this podcast and community become so important, because you get to level set and understand that everybody is going through that, right? Like you shouldn't
Absolutely.
be, you don't need to berate yourself or push yourself down. Like myself, the co-founder of Slumberkins, trained therapist, I'm doing the same things. I'm making mistakes. I'm getting triggered. Feel like I've messed up my kids or messed things up, right? Like every single person as a parent are going through these cycles, and that's the beauty of the growth that we get
Hmm.
to step into as parents within ourselves and try to do better for our children.
Absolutely. And I think what resources like the Mamahood After Trauma podcast and Slumberkins does is it gives you the tools to reduce the trauma that happens, because trauma happens when you're alone and you don't have the support in a given situation. But
Mm-hmm.
with these tools that we have at our fingertips now, it your child is no longer alone in feeling their feelings, and neither are you. So I think it's a really beautiful and opportunistic place to be.
Yeah. I think that what you said just there is so important. I just want to like double down. It's like important for me to hear. It's important for everybody to like just really understand that about trauma as well. That we can feel, especially if we've experienced trauma. I definitely have.
Absolutely.
My father, I grew up in an alcoholic family system. My dad was an alcoholic. There was definitely trauma throughout, like relational trauma
Mm-hmm.
and things throughout my life. And so when moments happen in my family that I feel like, oh no, I've like done something that reminds me of my father or that is triggering me on a deep level. It's so important to remember that the trauma that we maybe experienced happened because we were alone in it.
Alone. Yeah.
That's why we're holding on to it. That's why it's still coming up. And even if the same thing happens within our family, right? Like I have a
Mm-hmm.
blow up, I kick a bowl and yell, right? Like scare everybody in the house on
Yeah.
it's actually different for my kids because I'm immediately regulating. I'm coming and I'm talking to them about it. I'm owning my feelings. I'm
Mm-hmm.
processing their feelings with them. This is not going to be a trauma for them, likely. I mean, maybe, but like the chances of it being something that they hold on to for their whole life that impacts the way that they're showing up in the world is so reduced.
Yeah.
Because trauma, it really is subjective, and it's that experience of being alone and kind of making up stories on your own as a child and feeling that full overwhelm that
Yeah.
like that in your body and that it stays with you.
Yeah. And one of the things that I I had to learn on my own was how to repair. And I love the insert that comes inside of the Repair Bear box, the little card that
Hmm.
comes, because if you're a mama and you don't know yet how to repair, if that's just one of those desires of your heart that you want to repair but you don't know how because nobody's ever modeled it for you before, um because I don't know about y'all, but I never got an apology for anything my parents ever did.
No,
So
absolutely not. Still don't.
still don't. Still don't. It just says here, my feelings are mine. Let's reconnect and repair. I'm sorry I hurt you. I love you and care. And then on the back there is another poem. It's a bit longer, but it it gives you a script.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
that
that's really.
that is so powerful.
Yeah. And that's the beauty where, like, this goes back to even when we were still working in the schools. Kelly, as the social worker and therapist that at the school, she had groups that were just overflowing with kids that were dealing with family change, divorce, move, separation. And it was like she couldn't serve enough kids because parents were like, we're going through this, help my kid through it. And what she
Mm,
really knew as the family therapist was it's actually going to be so much more powerful if I give you the words to say to your children. And so that's what that's what we've done with Slumberkins through the affirmations that are embedded in every product and book that we make and publish, so that it really is a therapeutic script from a family therapist to say the words that kids need to hear that take away the wondering and the storytelling internally that creates the narrative that so many of us growing up in the 80s and 90s we're still like dealing with today.
Yeah. Yeah. Like for me in my parenting journey, what repair has done, and I say this a lot to a lot of people, it's not about never getting triggered again. We're human. Triggers are going to happen. It's inevitable. But having the ability and understanding as to how to repair is huge for your child. If somebody had have looked me in the eye a long time ago and said to me when I was a little girl, Emily, I'm sorry, that would have changed a lot. And for me in my journey, when I do something, when a trigger gets the best of me and I say, you know what, I'm really sorry that mommy scared you. Now, my kids are, they know I'm their safe person. They know that they can tell me when I've done something that hurts their feelings, which is huge because I never would have done that. I still won't do it. And I'm a 36-year-old woman. It's a huge relationship builder. What other benefits have you guys heard from other people using the Repair Bear?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Repair Bear has so many good stories from the community out there. I think I personally use it with my kids. And I think once you use the poem and you actually go through that moment of repair, the beauty of having something that's like tangible that represents a concept and a theme that is so intentional. I think what we've heard is that moms that are using it, they're like, I don't even need to do the poem. Like I can just go get the bear
Once you've done
and
it.
like my kid knows that like I'm ready, like I'm there to like apologize or even using it in like adult partnership and like relationships is I think a fun one to hear when they're like, I used it with my husband because I just like picked up the bear and it like de-escalated the conflict because like the intent was shown out of, or like kids will go if they feel overwhelmed and they'll go and grab the Repair Bear. And it's just a signal without really even having to say anything that you're wanting to come back into connection. And that's so powerful. Like so many people are walking around the world just wanting, seeking connection.
Well, yeah.
Absolutely.
Grab something to show that. It's so powerful.
It's really bringing up for me, like like I said, my journey with learning repair, even as a therapist and writing this story, knowing the steps and all of this, like the real experience for me internally when I would hurt somebody or upset somebody or scare somebody with my behavior. Internally for me, that felt like the most like shameful and horrible thing. You know, like I do avoid it at all costs, right? Like my system is sort of set up that way because of the relational trauma that I've experienced growing up.
Yeah.
It sort of it puts me on the side of like being a bit codependent, right? Like, because I'll try to help situations to make sure that other people are okay. And so part of my own like narrative and personality that blocked me from repair and blocked me from connection was this overwhelming feeling when whether it was with my partner, my kids, with Callie, with my friends, right? If I got into a place where somebody was mad at me for what I had done or something, I immediately was going into this defensive place. And I think there's a lot more people than we realize that have that similar reaction inside. And you know, there's always, I just see online all of the time too, like talking about narcissism and people who are just really not saying that narcissism isn't real, right? But like just really protected. And if I think about what drives that, it's that lack of connection in
Yeah.
childhood, that being alone, that if I had experienced that making mistakes was okay and like
Hmm.
apologizing was okay because I hurt you, now that doesn't mean that I'm a bad person, right? Like in my system,
Absolutely.
if I hurt you, that means I'm a bad person and I
Yeah.
don't exert to be here anymore, right? Like
Yeah.
that's how intense it feels internally for me because of my trauma. And every time I engage in repair, I remember the first times that this came into my awareness and I started to just take the steps and repair, it did not feel good. It felt like
Take some baby steps into
it
it.
felt like I would say like a bowling ball on my chest and I was
Hmm.
floating to the bottom of the ocean. And
Hmm.
it that to say sorry and to just hold that, like, because everything inside of me was then going off saying, well, you admitted it and now you are an awful, awful person.
Let the shame
Yeah.
spiral
Let the shame
begin.
spiral begin, and I think just bringing that up too, that like that's can be part of the process, and just because
Hmm.
you feel shame when you are repairing or having to do that doesn't mean that any of that is true.
Yeah.
Like that is your trauma to walk through, and that was the the process for me, and
Yeah.
I still get it. I mean,
Yeah.
you were mad at me yesterday, and I was over. She texted me how upset she was, and she owned her triggers, and I was over on the other side just bawling because I was like, she thinks I'm a horrible person, and she doesn't
Yeah.
think I'm a horrible person. I think I'm a horrible, it's like my own thing. So,
Yeah.
but it's like just, and I it was sure to write, I'm sorry, you know. I just, but I do want to just bring that up for the people who have difficulty repairing, because a lot of times from the outside it can look like, oh, they're a narcissist or they're just caring about themselves, they can't own their feelings, and there's layers there that like
Yeah.
I think when we encourage people to start getting in touch with that, we'll get
Hmm.
more and reconnection. And
Yeah.
people who are blocked off like that are often just filled with shame and feel like
Yeah.
they're bad.
Yeah. Yeah. That deep, intense feeling of shame that's really kind of interwoven into your identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's intense. Um, and I've been there too, so
Yeah.
I get
Well,
it.
I just wanted to mention it because I feel like there's a lot more of that going on inside for people that they don't know how to break that apart or come to
Yeah.
terms with it, and just feel either entitled to like not repair because
Yeah.
they're protecting themselves and they know they're a good person and they're gonna hold on to that,
Hmm.
and feel justified in that, and then they end up missing out on connection, and
Yeah.
the growth that's right there for them to step into, even though it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, and a lot of healing exists within connection. So, yeah.
And I would also just like for the people that don't have a hard time apologizing, like I feel like
Yeah.
I'm one that will like jump to an apology probably
Over
too
apologize.
quickly, over apologize to resolve a conflict because I hate conflict. So I'm like,
Hmm.
I'll just make it better. So then it's like bringing some self-awareness around,
Hmm.
um, did I just apologize and self-abandon because I didn't
Hmm.
actually express like what was the like why I was so triggered and angry? Did I just want to like blow up and then brush it under the
Hmm.
rug and never talk about it again? So I just apologize without actually coming into connection. Like
Yeah.
that's real too. And that's like a
Yeah.
coping,
Yeah.
that's like a behavior from like my own.
Both sides of the coin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And people like us always get together. So that's like the two of the partnership model that you'll probably have with a partner or a friend, right? Like one is this way or the other is that way. And then you just
Yeah. Yeah. So part of my mission with Mamahood After Trauma is to make healing accessible for all mamas, regardless of what their financial situation may tell them. So I like to end episodes with one or two tips that our listener can take with them to further their healing journey. So what two tips would you ladies like to share?
I would say becoming a mom and having trauma in your background means that you, especially in the early years, if not like into the later years of their kid, you're going to be getting triggered and feel overwhelmed and
Mm-hmm.
feel those coming up in your body. And my tip would be to just know that that's going to happen and know that your gift to your child and to yourself, like it's a very beautiful moment that you're going to get to reparent yourself around, along with reparenting your child.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't need to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. Every person in the world walks out of their family of origin, their family experience with pain, wounding, core beliefs that are like they're going to have to deal with later or come back to. But you have the ability to set your child up in a way that is light years beyond where you were if you bring just this awareness and around the trigger toolkit, around just showing up and working on that in connection with your child. They are light years ahead of any of us were, and that's a cool place to be because that's cycle breaking, and it takes generations to really get out of intergenerational trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And but it is mothers and really engaged primary caregivers that do that work. And
Mm-hmm.
it changes culture. It
Mm-hmm.
changes the world. And so this is really beautiful, sacred, and important work. And I
Yep.
just applaud those who are stepping into it.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
just add that feeling that way does not mean you're failing.
No.
Yeah. No, it'll be the most important work you ever do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think my tip would just be, if you're, I think I'm a good example of someone that didn't necessarily come from a family system that had big T trauma. Well, maybe now that I've been through therapy, I could redefine that. But like I was one that would always, for the majority of my adult life would look back and say like, I didn't have any trauma, everything was fine.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start to feel those triggers as a mom, and then you're reflecting back on your own childhood more and more, like being open to the fact that even just feeling alone in your
Mm-hmm.
feelings are mini micro traumas that
Yeah.
then lead to adult behaviors now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my coping mechanism is I just want to zone out like completely and just like tune out and like binge TV. Like I know that that's
Yeah.
like my go-to coping mechanism because I was alone a lot of the time as an only child, and my parents were working a lot of times overtime. I was home alone. Like all of that are little micro traumas because I was just
Mm-hmm.
alone in my thoughts and feelings a lot of the time. And I think just being open to the fact that not to dismiss how you ever felt as a child and really allow yourself to feel those feelings. And in the moments
Mm-hmm.
that we feel the most overwhelmed, always just remembering you can always come back to yourself 5 or 10 minutes of like internal
Mm-hmm.
self work and just being able to like go inward for a minute can
Yeah.
restabilize. That's been like my biggest tool is like, oh, I need to just go do like a 5 to 10 minute, whatever it is, connect more to my body, whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
bath, a meditation, something to just like get me out of the emotional state of a trigger, has been really helpful.
Yeah, thanks. Reconnecting with yourself when you're feeling really triggered can prevent that shame spiral that we've spoken about. And so that is really powerful. Where can our listeners connect with you guys further if they'd like to do so?
We are on social media at the handle Slumberkins. And then our most kind of community, engaged community is in the Slumberkins social Facebook group, where we moderate and manage it and have conversations about trauma and emotional wellness and all things Slumberkins every day.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking some time today to chat with me and be on the podcast. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Mamahood After Trauma. Take one insight from today, breathe, reflect, and keep healing out loud. Subscribe to the podcast for more stories, tools, and support. And remember, Mama, you're breaking cycles and rising with honesty. Until next time, mend the past so you can mama in peace.